أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وبه نستعين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا وعظيمنا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم محمد المصطفى وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه الغر الميامين الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله سبحان رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. I begin with a small bit of a poem from the pre-Islamic poet. His name is Abu Jundub al-Mash'um. He says, هنالك لو دعوت أتاك منهم رجال مثل أرمية الحميم. The translation is, when you call out, their men rush to you like the hot summer cloud. This poem was referenced by Imam Ali at the time during his caliphate. Muawiyah's army had made advances on certain posts in different cities, and unfortunately his army ran. They didn't stay up to the task. They did not fulfill their oath. And Imam Ali was quite disappointed. I will not cite to you exactly what he said, but he was very disappointed. He said instead that instead of you who ran, who turned your back on your oath when you're called upon, I would wish that I had the people of a certain tribe, a particular tribe that he mentions. That particular tribe would rush when called for, and he cited this poem. When you call out, their men rush to you like the hot summer cloud. Armiyat al-Hamim. If you've heard some of the previous khutab that I've given, you'll know that we've discussed together the importance of this word, Hamim. To explain why the summer cloud, just for your information. He says that the poet singles out the summer clouds because they are blown along more swiftly and are light and fast moving. Clouds move heavily when they are full of water, and this is true mostly in the winter. So the poet wished to describe the warriors as swift to answer the call and as assisting as soon as they are asked. So when you call out, their men rush to you. Maybe towards the end of the khutbah, if there's time, we'll return and think about this cloud that moves as one, that is both permeable and impermeable at the same time, that is swift, is light, but is all connected and all together. But let's move back to our day and age here today. What we are facing in our ummah. Catastrophe. we are living a catastrophe. Everybody knows what I'm talking about because we talk about it on this pulpit every week. But this week, there was a lot of developments from Saudi diplomats as Davos took place, and the Saudi representatives talked a lot about what their plans are and how further they are trying to put their hooks into the rest of the world. One piece of news that I saw as a football fan, quite disappointing, was that the Saudi Public Investment Fund prepared $1.3 billion as a bid for Real Madrid's Vinicius Jr. Real Madrid to get $312 million. I hope he doesn't take that deal. I thought of Neymar, the very famous Brazilian who was bought by Al Hilal a few years back on a 2-year deal that cost over $525 million. For that $525 million, Neymar only managed to play 7 matches and score 1 goal, as he was injured for most of the season, and some of the games were away. $525 million. Rules were bent over backwards and broken for Neymar to bring his girlfriend to the kingdom because you're not allowed to live with someone if you're not married. But if you're Neymar and they spend $525 million on you, then laws don't matter. I have great thanks to the journalist Karim Zidan, fantastic journalist who has written a lot about sports washing, about the UFC's ties to strong men in Central Asia, sports washing in general, Saudi Arabia's growing sports sector, entertainment sector. And he made a number of really pertinent observations. One is that just recently the WTA finals, the 2024 WTA finals for women's tennis, was played in Saudi Arabia. And the winner, Coco Gauff, won. And, when they interviewed her at the end, she says, "Oh, this tournament is so great because it will inspire Saudi girls to believe that their dreams are possible." And Karim, very rightly, immediately thought of an activist like Manahil al-Utaybi, who is currently serving an 11-year jail sentence. She was arrested in November of 2022. And what was she found guilty of? Terrorism offenses. You might ask, what terrorism did she commit? She opposed the male guardianship system laws and the hijab laws. She filmed this video of herself walking into a cafe without abaya or hijab or something. And she used particular hashtags that are used regularly to show discontent against these laws. That's all it took. And she's now a terrorist, a convicted terrorist, and sits in jail for 11 years. Okay. We know about Saudi Arabia is that they have significant investments in all sports. In fact, according to Karim Zidan, it'd probably be easier to try to mention the sports that Saudi is not involved in. They're involved in football, soccer, in golf. They put $1 billion into the PGA. That's a long story. They have a UFC event coming up soon. Boxing, everyone has seen that they've brought all of the big names there. Equestrianism, cycling, billiards, the list goes on. But it's not just sports. Saudi is invested in Silicon Valley, and it is the single largest investor in US startups. In fact, MBS invested $300 million in Twitter some years back, and then used it to propagandize, to spy, and harass. For this, actually, you can look up A More Perfect Union by Paul Blest. He did a video for The More Perfect Union. It's called How Saudi Arabia Bought Trump and What They Want. And it's a very fantastic resource. They use Twitter. Probably they used Twitter to track down Manahil. They had a spy ring. Twitter never answered for it because MBS invested $300 million. They're invested in video games. Activision and EA belongs to them, or at least a significant portion of them. They don't fully belong to them. Lucid and Uber and Zoom, and the list goes on and on. Just now, recently, they invested significantly in AI, $100 billion in AI. And at Davos, they spoke a lot more about a new thing that has me pretty concerned. Data centers and mineral extraction. Why does that matter? Data centers is where your cloud is. When you upload things to the cloud, there is no armiyat hamim. There is no hot summer cloud that's actually taking your data. No, it's going to a massive campus, essentially, of computers that need a lot of water to keep it cool. In fact, every time you use the AI machine, you are burning those data centers, and a significant amount of water is needed to cool down everything so it doesn't catch fire. Mineral extraction. What's the problem? What's the concern? They have been saying now for a while that they think that there is over $1 trillion worth of useful mineral to be extracted for energy purposes. Because it's no secret now that the kingdom, for many, many years, in the last decade, has been moving away from its reliance on oil. And the US continues to drill its own oil and gas. And Saudi knows that. So it has to diversify. At least that's how they put it. The relationship between Saudi and America was strictly based on oil. But if the oil doesn't become the base of the relationship, then you need something else to keep that pact. Because I think we all know at this point, Saudi Arabia wants a defense pact with the US. They want total protection from the United States. And that is why they will normalize with Israel. It's not a question of if, they will normalize. But if and when they normalize, what are you going to do about it? Another thing to worry about. The kingdom has now opened up the holy sites of Mecca and Medina to foreign investment. Below 49%, albeit, to maintain the majority. However, foreign investment is going to drive more buildings, more infrastructure, more room to house people, more market to sell people, more product to give to people. Why? According to the tourism minister, Ahmed al-Khatib, religious tourism is still the country's biggest driver. Not oil. AI is a $100 billion investment. We don't know if it's going to work or not. Data centers are investments. We don't know if it's going to work or not. Minerals, depends on how many slaves you can get from Southeast Asia and let them die in the mines. Don't know. Neymar comes, you spend $1 billion on him, and he gets hurt. Okay, you send him off. They're trying everything, and they're not doing a good job. They're doing a horrible job by all standards. It just happens that they have a lot of money. But money is not infinite. But you know what is infinite? 1 billion Muslim bodies. That is as close to infinite as it gets. And that is why Ahmed al-Khatib has no concern telling you religious tourism is still the country's biggest driver. Josh Corder, writing for The Skift, says that in 2024, the kingdom had 30 million international arrivals. And that was a new record, which is a massive increase from 2019. And that is when international tourism began. They had 17.5 million in 2019. Now we're up to 30 million. What is the goal by 2030? 70 million. 70 million international visitors by 2030 is the goal. So Saudi needs an average increase annually of 6.6 million visitors per year. In 2023, religious tourism generated $28 billion in spending for Saudi. And there was twice as many of the travelers that were pilgrims as compared to leisure visitors. Twice as many. So you can get Cristiano Ronaldo and Neymar and these other people who are on the back end of their careers, who will come for these megabucks. It's megabucks to them, but apparently to the public wealth fund, it's not megabucks because they're operating with nearly a $1 trillion budget. That's what they've got right now under the assets, about 900 something billion. So the main hope for the GDP increase is what? Tourism, international travelers. In fact, a few years ago, Bin Salman was told about sports washing and said, hey, don't you think that this is bad, sports washing? It's very unethical. And he said, if sports washing is going to increase my GDP by 1%, I'll keep sports washing. John Gramble of AP News says that Bin Salman is trying to invest $600 billion in the US economy. Why is he doing that? Like we said, US is not relying on Saudi crude oil anymore. Bin Salman's security is at risk. Guys, this is huge. All of his legitimacy with the West has been tied to oil. The kingdom's legitimacy to the West has been tied to oil. And they are frantically putting their money in anything. Whatever it takes to diversify. But it's not diversification. And we'll come back to this towards the end to make it super clear. It's not to diversify. It's to try to entangle themselves with the West as much as humanly possible to ensure that Western governments will do what? They will keep Saudi Arabia safe from, I won't call them Saudis, Arabian citizens. They can't afford to protect themselves because they don't know how. The mess that they're making is going to fall on their faces. It's all going to fall apart. The mismanagement and the corruption is insane. The hypocrisy is insane. Please Google this lady Coco, the tennis player. I'm so sorry, I don't know who she is really. I don't watch tennis. Look at what she was wearing when she won. I've got no problem. People can wear what they want. But the problem I have is Manahil al-Utaybi, compared to what she was wearing, and she's in jail for 11 years. Whatever he invests in, it doesn't matter. It is to protect his relationship with Donald Trump and the US. And boy, was it a good relationship the first time around. And Kushner this time, who made $2 billion to his little fund or whatever. Kushner this time isn't a part of the government. They've wisened up. You don't need an official position in the US government to make the calls in this country. You just need your man in the office. And you just need him to be dumb enough to listen to what you say. And boy, is he dumb enough. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم أسأل الله يستجب لكم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وبه نستعين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه الغر الميامين. How do we understand what to do? Are you concerned? Or is it just me? Are you losing sleep over this? Or is it just me? If I shouldn't lose sleep, please write me. Tell me why I shouldn't lose sleep. And if you're not losing sleep, you're about to start losing sleep. Because there's a surah named Surah Ghafir. I would love to just pluck a verse or two and throw it to you, but unfortunately, my training doesn't allow me to do that. We have to try to understand the surah as quickly and concisely as we can, but in its coherent whole. I'll do my very, very best. The structure, by the way, is very crucial. If you study it closely, its binary nature will reveal itself to you, and it will open itself up. It will explain itself to you. You won't feel like you're studying it. There is a central question in the surah. The Shaykh outlines this in his tafsir. Please go and listen to it. فَهَلْ إِلَى خُرُوجٍ مِّن سَبِيلٍ. Is there an exit from this path? The feeling of being stuck. We all know it. We all know it in our personal lives. You want to change. You want your circumstances to change. But you're stuck in these awful interpersonal relationships. You're stuck in your own mind, in your own body, in your own spirit. And it hurts. It's painful. The torment is horrible. But you have to walk around all day and pretend like you've got it together because that's what everybody else does too. But at the base of your soul is this question. فَهَلْ إِلَى خُرُوجٍ مِّن سَبِيلٍ. Is there a damn exit? The very sad thing about this question that's being asked in the surah is that it's being asked by people for whom it's already too late. They are paying back the bill that became due for the decisions that they made while they were living. But why are we given this question now while we are alive? It's a cheat. You're allowed to see the future. God is pulling back the veils of time and is saying, look, this is the question that will be in your heart in the future if you don't take my antidote, if you don't accept my antidote. Well, alhamdulillah, God gave us the antidote in this surah. It comes in the form of verse 55. فَاصْبِرْ إِنَّ وَعْدَ اللَّهِ حَقٌّ وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لِذَنْبِكَ وَسَبِّحْ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّكَ بِالْعَشِيِّ وَالْإِبْكَارِ. And this so happens to be the dhikr for this surah. What does this mean, my friends? فَاصْبِرْ, persevere. Certainly God's promise is true. وَاسْتَغْفِرْ, ask forgiveness for your shortcomings, for your impudence, for your disobedience, for your immorality. وَسَبِّحْ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّكَ, وَسَبِّحْ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّكَ, exalt your Lord upon seeing and understanding and reflecting on all that you should be grateful for. And there is so much to be grateful for. If you're not sure how to do that, this surah, amongst many surahs in the Qur'an, tells you. Read it, and I won't read it for you now, but read it. The basics of your life. How the rain comes and feeds the ground and your food grows from it. Well, that's not impressive. No, what's not impressive is your lack of gratitude. You are used to, like I am, used to just driving through and saying, can I have one mac and cheese, please? And you move through it. I don't have to think about it. You're used to it. Don't forget that this surah is a Hamim surah. And I'm obsessed with Hamim. And so therefore I believe that when you apply Hamim, Haqq wal Mizan to these verses, it helps to enrich the meaning a great deal. So, should I apply the key now so that you can see the conclusion right now before we get to the end? Okay. If you persevere in your belief in God and His moral truth and the responsibility of that belief, and you feed that belief by ever remembering that all existence must submit to His truth, and given the remembrance of this belief, you constantly set the scales of equity and personal accountability back to balance, then God's promise of your deliverance from your torment is promised and ever true. I promise you, there is a way out, but you have to take it before it's too late, or before you've gone too far astray from your responsibility and from your balance, that God will allow you to go further and further astray ad infinitum. I shared with you the key. Now let's examine the lock as quickly as we possibly can. There's many sections in the surah. I've whittled them down to 2 sections that we need to very briefly look at to understand. Section number 1 is verses 1 through 22. Please try to stay with me. I know I'm asking a lot from you, but I greatly appreciate you. Verse 14. فَادْعُوا اللَّهَ مُخْلِصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْكَافِرُونَ. Everybody knows what this means. Your religious observance must be purely for God. It must be pure. Completely purified. It cannot be partnered with other pollutants. The pollution is illegal. Haqq wal mizan. If it is polluted, your mizan will be in imbalance, and you will lose the truth for confusion and delusion instead, and then you will pollute others. The only cure for this is tasbih, sabbih bihamdi rabbik, and istighfar, making tangible amends for your pollution. That will set the scale back to haqq, truth, and you will have been responsible for remedying the inequity, mizan. So the first concept, your prayers must be pure. What are the arkan al-Islam? Arkan al-Islam, everybody. We have to pray, and we have to fast, and we have to go to Hajj, and we have to do zakah, and we have to say the shahada. And therefore, brother, are you being angry about Saudi Arabia? I know what's going to come from your mouth next. Are you going to say that we shouldn't go on Hajj? Yep. You know why, brother? Because I asked you, if every time you had to pray Salat al-Fajr and you had to pay $1 to the Saudi Public Investment Fund, how would you feel about that? $1. We're not asking you too much. $1, please. How would you? Well, that feels like a bid'ah. I don't know. That doesn't feel right. Why would I give one? Maybe, if anything, I should give $1 to the poor. Oh, that's good. What about Hajj? Okay, no, we don't do Hajj yet. We'll do just zakah. Okay, for every dollar you give to a poor person, you give $1 to the Saudi Public Investment Fund. Sound good? You see how embarrassing that is? Okay, Hajj. We'll go walk around the Kaaba. But for each circumambulation, you pay $2,000? $3,000? $4,000? For each Umrah, how many is it? Then you have to sleep at night. Whose hotel are you sleeping in? Whose food are you eating? Whose clothes are you wearing? Whose planes are you riding? Where is all that money going? To Palestine. Oh, no, not to Palestine. It's going to Neymar. Verse 16, Judgment Day. لِمَنِ الْمُلْكِ الْيَوْمِ لِمَنِ الْمُلْكِ الْيَوْمِ لِلَّهِ الْوَاحِدِ الْقَهَّارِ. Everybody knows these very famous verses. To whom does sovereignty and total jurisdiction belong on Judgment Day? Well, the reformer and the believer in this surah will tell you, and he'll mention it again in verse 26. Verse 21. This is the strongest argument of the surah. Have they not traveled in the land to see the consequences of those who disbelieve before them? They were mightier than those in power in their traces, their ruins, which they left behind on earth. God seized them for their sins, and they had no protector to stop it. Go back and review Sharif's khutbah on Surah Yasin, where he talks about athar. The word athar is invoked here in this verse. Athar makes you think of the ancient wonders of the world, ancient monuments of advanced civilizations, pyramids, obelisks, this sort of thing. This verse will come full circle again at the end of the surah. Quickly now, the second section, this is verses 23 through 52. This is the main narrative of the surah. Moses is sent to Pharaoh and Haman and Qarun with a sultanin mubin. I would call this a moral warrant. It is in essence a moral authority or a moral argument to challenge Pharaoh's sultan, Pharaoh's power and authority, his perceived power over the mulk, over the kingdom, over the investment fund that he's got. Moses is sent with the haqq, the truth, and the responsibilities to set the imbalance of the scales of Egypt with his divine warrant. This Sultanin Mubin. It's a terrifying task, obviously, but he must remember the command. فَاصْبِرْ إِنَّ وَعْدَ اللَّهِ حَقٌّ وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لِذَنْبِكَ وَسَبِّحْ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّكَ بِالْعَشِيِّ وَالْإِبْكَارِ. Everybody remembers what that means. This is what will empower Musa, his istighfar and his tasbih, his commitment to haqq wal mizan. That is what empowers him to persevere through the trial and responsibility. But here's what's super surprising about the surah. Those who know the surah know. What's surprising is you expect next for Musa and Pharaoh to engage in their famous dialogue and back and forth. It's not what happens in the surah. What happens in this surah is we don't hear anything essentially from what Musa says. Instead, we hear from someone from Ali Fir'aun, someone within his own court who has his ear, like a reverse Jared Kushner, the anti-Elon Musk. Or if Elon Musk suddenly woke up and saw this khutbah and said, oh my God, I believe now, and what an amazing world that would be. So this reformer believes in Musa's message. He believes in Musa's message. And he takes Pharaoh to task. And he comes to Musa's call like what? Like a cloud on a hot summer's day. This reformer, this believer, didn't wait around to hear about whether he's allowed to, well, I'm not the student of Musa yet, so am I allowed to speak on his behalf? Or should I go and... Nothing. He heard the truth. He understood his responsibility. He understood that being part of Al Fir'aun, that he had helped contribute to the imbalance of the scales. He stood up and he made a remedy, and he said to Pharaoh to his face, Pharaoh, you are in the wrong here. You are going to kill a man because he comes and professes his faith and truth the way that he sees it, with a Sultan Mubin, with a moral authority, with a moral argument that has power, that has logical power. This is what you would do? This is verses 28 and 29. And a believing man of Pharaoh's family, or Ali Fir'aun, who hid his faith, said, would you kill a man because he saith, my Lord is Allah, and hath brought you clear proofs from your Lord? If he is lying, then his lie is upon him. And if he is truthful, then some of that which he threatened you with will strike you. Lo, Allah guideth not one who is musrifun kadhab. Musrifun kadhab. Subhanallah. The exact opposite of haqq wal mizan. Kadhab is a liar, haqq is truth. Musrif is a waster. Mizan is balance and fairness and equity. Who are you thinking of in your head right now? Are you thinking of Pharaoh, or are you thinking of bin Salman and the kingdom? Do the work with me. I don't even think I have the surah is doing the work itself. Ya qawm, O my people, yours is the kingdom today. ظاهرين في الأرض. At this moment, you are ظاهرين في الأرض. You are on the upper hand. You are on top at this moment. But who would save us from the wrath of Allah should it reach us? Pharaoh says something interesting. He says, ما أريكم إلا ما أرى وما أهديكم إلا سبيل الرشاد. I do but show you what I see. If it's sports washing, as long as 1% of my GDP goes up, I'm doing what I can for development of this country. Sabil al-Rashad. Sabil means a path. Rashad comes from rushd, which means growth, development, maturity. Pharaoh is now saying, I have only but ever served you, guided you to Sabil al-Rashad. The development, look at the pyramids and the obelisks and the gold and the blah blah blah. Look at all this zukhruf that proves the might of Egypt. SubhanAllah. Rushd is not bound to a wealth fund, to building castles, to building monuments, to building the Eye of Sauron that will stare down like the big brother on Mecca. That's not rushd. My Iranian, Persian brothers and sisters, please, for God's sake, turn off Iran International. Iran International is funded by Saudi Arabia, and they are rotting your brains. When I hear the words Shahzadeh Mutaraqi Arabistan Saudi, it makes my hair fall off of my head, and I have to glue it back on again. Shahzadeh Mutaraqi, the progressive prince of Arabistan. Yes, progressive because Neymar and Jennifer Lopez and a bigger Kaaba and a golden Kaaba and a clock tower and foreign funding for the buildings, mines, slaves, whatever you want. I'll tell you what is development. I'll tell you what he is developing. That Kaaba that you look at is a cube. Has 4 corners, 90-degree angles. It is wearing but a shirt. As humble as can be. It looks to me even like a prophet doing sujood, is what it looks like to me. What does the kingdom build around this symbol of sujood? Instead of building a tower, he might as well have built a pyramid. He might as well have built a pyramid. And guess what? When it comes to his mines, they'll crack the whip pretty soon. We'll come back. يا قومي اتبعوني أهديكم سبيل الرشاد. Instead, the reformer says the opposite, the same thing but in its opposite meaning. He says this is not Sabil Rashad. This is not the way to development and growth. This is not the righteous path. This is not Sirat al-Mustaqim. Sirat al-Mustaqim is Musa, is Haqq wal-Mizan, is equity and truth. When the truth reaches you, you are but like a hot summer cloud that flows towards it and does whatever it must like and fight to do what's right. Yes. So, this is the famous scene in which Pharaoh, in verses 36 and 37, asks Haman to do what? To build a tower. Everybody knows the verse. And Pharaoh said, "O Haman, build for me a tower that happily I may reach the roads, the asbab, asbab al-samawat, the path of the," he's mocking now, the path of guidance here, so that I can look upon the God of Musa, though verily I think him a liar. And thus was the evil that he did, made it fair seeming to Pharaoh, God made it fair seeming to Pharaoh, and he was debarred from the right way. And the plot of Pharaoh ended in but ruin. Yes. What are those clock towers? What are all those shopping malls and coffees and Starbucks and hotels and more? What is it for? It is Haman's tower. The tower was never meant to actually serve Allah. It was never meant to be the wasila, the tool to serving Allah purely. It is meant, my dear qawm, it is meant to pollute your worship. Why? When you go to Masjid al-Haram, what should be on your mind is that Allah created all of this. He created mountains and birds and an ecosystem that feeds itself and that feeds me and that I tend to it as God's deputy and vicegerent. And that we grow and do rushd together because we have understood haqq wal mizan. We have understood responsibility and being equitable amongst all of God's servants, be it animal or be it plant or be it human being. That's Sabil al-Rashad. God is not against development. God is not against technology. But what God is against is if that technology and that development is rooted in musrif and kizb. Israf and kizb. Wastefulness, profiteering, dishonesty. You listen to those men in Davos. Every word out of their mouths is a lie. All of it is a lie. Everybody knows it's a lie. What happens in the end, guys, my friends? What happens in the end? All of these find themselves in hell because they were on whose sabil? Sabil al-Rashad, the mu'min, or Sabil al-Rashad, the Pharaoh. They were in Pharaoh's sabil. And that sabil went straight to hell in a handbasket. And then the du'afa, the weak from among them, in comparison to the powerful, are all mixed in this basket together. They are all burning together. And the weak says to the powerful, hey, Mr. Pharaoh guy. Hey, Mr. Rumayan, whatever the hell his name is. Hey, Mr. Powerful Man. Public wealth fund man. Every time I prayed, I put $1 into your basket. Every time I did Hajj and Umrah, I put $1,000, $10,000 into your basket. I thought you were the guy who was going to direct us on Sabil Rashad. He's going to say, don't talk to me. Look at bin Salman. Bin Salman's going to say, don't look to me. Look at my daddy, Mr. Salman. And they're all going to go like this. No, the other guy. But guess what? The powerful look back at the weak that they misled and they say, hey man, we all made our choices here together. We're all in it together now. And we're all equal here now. Now we're all equal. Back when we were alive, I was building a pyramid. And you knew I was building a pyramid. And you know what you did? You showed up, you picked up a brick, and you put it into its place. That's what you did. And he said, I served God today. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You built a pyramid. The arkan, the pillars of Islam for you was to build a pyramid, not to build a Kaaba. That rational argument that came up at the beginning of look around at the athar, these technological advancements. Till today, nobody has a bloody idea what the pyramids are. There's they don't know what it is. It's an energy source. It was all bright and nobody knows. There is no real good answer about how all of these blocks moved around. I don't care. I watched every documentary that there was. There is no answer. Nobody knows how they did this. Nobody knows how there's perfectly cut things in stone in Petra and there's perfect cube-sized rooms. How did they do that? Nobody has an answer. The athar exist. There were technologies that were greater than ours. There were peoples and civilizations that were more advanced than ours. And Allah left these behind for us in ruin so that when He opens His book and He tells you, have you not traveled around the world to see the remnants of previous generations that were stronger than you? To learn, to at least listen to the mu'min's rational proof. Well, if he's lying, Musa's lying, then on him is his lie. It'll fall apart on his face. But if he's telling the truth, you'll end up in hell, and you will say to yourself the terrifying sentence and question. فَهَلْ إِلَى خُرُوجٍ مِّن سَبِيلٍ. Nope, no khuruj that day. But today there is a khuruj. But today, ya qawm, there is a khuruj. What is it? Stop going to the Saudi kingdom. Stop it. Stop building the Saudi pyramid. If you live in Saudi Arabia and if you are an Arab living in the Saudi kingdom, that's a different story. God be with you. But for all of the rest of us who have another passport and live elsewhere and can actually do something like me in this country, I can say this. But now I can never go back to my eternal home. My home that I would happily die for. I can't go back because I will die for it. Alhamdulillah. Stop building Saudi pyramids. This kingdom is on pillars of salt and sand. It will fall. It will fall. I don't promise you, God promises you. And if it weren't for this damned kingdom, Palestine would not have a genocide. Chinese Muslims wouldn't be in internment camps where we don't even see pictures. We don't have knowledge of what they are going through. Sheikh Hassan Farhan al-Maliki would not be in a 2x2 cell. He would be teaching you your religion. He would be guiding you to the real Sabil Rashad. And boy, do you and me and every one of us need that. But each night we go to sleep. Well, I don't. But each night most people go to sleep and don't remember Sheikh Hassan Farhan al-Maliki or Salman al-Uda. But I remember them. They are the mu'minun. They are the reformers. The brave men or women that stood up in the kingdom. Yes, of course, they were not Al-Fir'aun. A'udhu billah. But for all intents and purposes, they were in the same situation. And they saw the haqq, and they saw the imbalance of the mizan, and they said, فَاصْبِرْ إِنَّ وَعْدَ اللَّهِ حَقٌّ. And so they persevered. And to this day, I guarantee you, they are in that jail cell and they are repeating this dhikr day and night. Allah yufrij anhuma. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. يا رب باسمك يا رب Make our hearts one. Make our hearts as if the vapor of a cloud on a hot summer day, that when the cloud is running, is flying through the air, and hears the voice and the call of Ali, and the call of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the call of Musa, and the call of all of the Anbiya. It doesn't look whether it should rain, or whether it should go left, or whether it should go right. Allah, make us the cloud that flies in the direction. That cloud becomes like a cloud of spears and arrows towards God's enemy, who pollutes your earth. Make our hearts one on this day, Ya Rabb. Make us Armiyatil Hamim. Let us be the hand that purifies your holy sites. Ya Rabb, hear my prayer and hear our prayer. Waqim as-salah.